In a quiet suburban town, behind the smiling faces and picket fences, a teenage girl was being starved into silence. 4 adults, each trusted to protect her, became the architects of her suffering, and it took months before anyone realized the nightmare hiding in plain sight. The town of Willow Creek was the kind of place where everyone thought they knew everyone else. Streets were lined with maple trees. The air smelled faintly of fresh-baked bread from local bakeries, and children played outside until the sun dipped below the horizon. On the surface, it seemed like a safe, ordinary place, a town untouched by tragedy or crime. But behind the doors of a small, nondescript house on Elm Street, a darkness had been quietly taking root, hidden from neighbors, friends, and even family. Emily Harris, a 15-year-old girl, lived there with her father, her stepmother, and 2 younger siblings. What was served was never enough, yet those who asked questions were met with sharp discipline. Emily had learned to move silently through the house, avoiding triggers for anger or punishment. Her stepmother, Lisa Harris, orchestrated this environment with a chilling precision. On the outside, Lisa presented herself as caring and attentive, the perfect mother figure. She began hiding small pieces of food in her room, tucking crumbs into drawers or under her bed. Even those desperate measures carried risk, and she often went hungry rather than risk discovery. Friends at school noticed she seemed smaller, paler, and more withdrawn, but Emily's fear kept her from speaking out. Teachers noticed subtle signs of fatigue and malnutrition but were unable to act without concrete proof. The abuse was calculated, hidden in plain sight, woven into everyday routines so seamlessly that it appeared ordinary to anyone who didn't know the full story. The house on Elm Street had become a prison. One where every corner held surveillance, every meal carried risk, and every act of defiance could trigger consequences. Emily lived in constant fear, caught in a cycle she could not escape. The life she led inside those walls was a stark contrast to the serene streets outside. A secret torment concealed beneath the facade of suburban normalcy. Teachers began to notice that she seemed unusually tired, her movements sluggish, her gaze distant and unfocused. At lunch, she often ate very little, sometimes nothing at all, pushing trays around without touching the food. Friends whispered among themselves, worried but unsure how to help. At home, the situation was far more severe. Meals were not only limited, but controlled with strict precision. Portions were weighed, snacks forbidden, and any request for extra food was met with cold indifference or a sharp reprimand. The pattern of deprivation had been in place for months, growing increasingly cruel, but it remained hidden from anyone who didn't step inside the house. It wasn't until Emily missed several days of school that alarm bells began to ring.
Medical examinations confirmed what neighbors and teachers had only suspected. Emily's body was severely malnourished, her weight dangerously low for her age, and her organs showed early signs of stress from prolonged starvation. The evidence painted a clear and disturbing picture. This was not accidental neglect, but deliberate and systematic abuse. The pattern extended beyond simple restriction of food. Investigators found indications of psychological control as well. Messages, journals, and household logs suggested that Emily had been isolated from friends, closely monitored, and manipulated into fear and compliance. Every aspect of her daily life had been engineered to weaken her, to control her, and to keep her trapped. The deeper detectives dug, the more horrifying the story became. Digital records, financial statements, and private messages revealed coordination and shared responsibility in ways that stunned the community. It was no longer just a matter of parental neglect. This was a calculated, systematic effort to isolate and control a vulnerable teenager. Emily's father, long considered a loving parent by neighbors, appeared increasingly complicit as evidence emerged. Financial records suggested he had enabled the starvation, limiting grocery purchases under the guise of budgeting while allowing his wife to enforce strict and dangerous dietary restrictions. Emails and messages between him and family friends hinted at discussions about how to manage Emily's behavior, often focusing on control rather than care. Investigators began to piece together a timeline showing how Emily's life had been deliberately restricted, her every move monitored, and her access to the outside world tightly controlled. The role of Lisa Harris, the stepmother, became even clearer. Beyond withholding food, she had created an atmosphere of fear and manipulation designed to break Emily's will. School records showed she had called teachers repeatedly, misrepresenting Emily's health and behavior, discouraging inquiries that might expose the abuse. Psychological profiling of Lisa suggested an obsessive need to dominate and maintain power over the household, using both subtle emotional manipulation and overt punishment to ensure compliance. It was chilling to consider how someone could maintain such a facade in public while orchestrating harm behind closed doors. Even more disturbing were the roles played by extended family and close friends. Investigators found that an older relative had provided guidance on managing Emily's behavior and disciplining her in ways that contributed to the malnutrition. A family friend had supplied resources that indirectly reinforced the control exerted by the father and stepmother, never intervening even when the signs of abuse were evident. Each piece of evidence painted a picture of a household insulated by those who should have protected the child, a small community of adults colluding in silence. Every transaction, every communication, and every controlled interaction revealed the extent of planning that had gone into keeping Emily powerless. The seemingly ordinary suburban house on Elm Street had become a chamber of orchestrated suffering, where for adults each with a role in the abuse had maintained a dangerous equilibrium for months. The investigation was no longer solely about uncovering the truth. It was about holding every adult responsible for the damage inflicted on a single, defenseless teenager. Every record, every testimony, and every secret revealed made it painfully clear that Emily's survival had been a battle fought alone, and that justice would need to confront a network of individuals who had collectively endangered her life. The arrest of Lisa Harris sent shockwaves through Willow Creek. For months, she had presented herself as the model stepmother, attending school events, volunteering for community activities, and maintaining the appearance of a caring parent. Neighbors and friends were stunned to learn that the woman they admired had been at the center of a calculated pattern of abuse, orchestrating starvation and fear within her own household. On the day of her arrest, officers arrived quietly at the house, careful not to alarm the other children, but the presence of law enforcement immediately drew attention from curious neighbors. Cameras and reporters quickly gathered, eager to capture the moment that would mark a significant turning point in a case that had gripped the town. Investigators described the arrest as pivotal. Lisa was charged with child abuse, intentional starvation, and child endangerment, making her the fourth adult formally implicated in the case. Her father, previously charged with neglect and complicity, had set the stage for the authorities' intervention, but Lisa's involvement revealed the full depth of the abuse. A family friend and an extended relative had already been charged, but the arrest of the stepmother brought the entire household into focus, showing that multiple adults had participated in a prolonged and deliberate campaign of control over a vulnerable teenager. Court documents and investigative reports painted a chilling picture. Lisa had monitored every aspect of Emily's life, from what she ate to how she spent her free time. She had kept detailed logs of meals, exercise, and interactions, ensuring that Emily remained isolated and compliant. Neighbors recalled instances that seemed normal at the time, Lisa insisting that Emily take part in chores, limiting her participation in social events, but these actions, viewed in hindsight, were part of a broader strategy to maintain dominance and suppress resistance. Her outwardly calm demeanor concealed a manipulative mind, capable of planning cruelty in a way that avoided detection. The arrest also revealed the emotional toll on Emily and her siblings. Investigators noted that the children had become conditioned to fear punishment, often internalizing blame for circumstances beyond their control. Emily, now in protective custody, showed signs of relief mingled with apprehension. The removal of Lisa from the home meant safety, but it also marked the beginning of a new struggle adjusting to freedom and processing months of abuse. Authorities emphasized the importance of psychological care alongside physical recovery, recognizing that the effects of long-term manipulation and starvation could linger long after the immediate danger had passed. Media coverage highlighted the complexity of the case. Headlines focused on the number of adults involved, the calculated nature of the abuse, and the shocking fact that the community had been unaware for so long. Public reaction was a mixture of horror and outrage, with many questioning how a seemingly ordinary family could conceal such cruelty. Experts on child welfare and criminal psychology were brought in to provide context, explaining how manipulation, isolation, and control often allow abuse to remain hidden until someone notices the signs. The arrest of Lisa Harris became more than a legal action. It was a turning point that shifted the narrative from suspicion to accountability. For Emily, it was a step toward survival, a moment that validated the suffering she had endured and signaled that justice was finally beginning to unfold. The case had exposed not only the dangers that could exist behind closed doors, but also the intricate ways in which multiple adults could collude to harm a single vulnerable child. It was a stark reminder that vigilance, intervention, and awareness are essential in protecting those who cannot protect themselves, and that even the most ordinary facades can conceal extraordinary cruelty. Emily Harris's life slowly began to change once she was removed from the house on Elm Street. The physical scars of prolonged starvation were evident, but the emotional and psychological wounds ran even deeper. Weeks of careful monitoring by medical professionals revealed the extent of her malnutrition, weakened bones, muscle loss, and organ stress. Every day brought small victories, meals she could eat without fear, conversations without threats, and the ability to sleep without anxiety. Yet, alongside the relief was the lingering trauma of months spent under constant control, a trauma that would require long-term care and attention to heal. As legal proceedings advanced, more details about the case emerged, shocking the public and deepening the sense of betrayal felt by the community. Court documents outlined a meticulous system of abuse. Each adult involved had contributed to a controlled environment that left Emily powerless. Evidence showed that the father had acquiesced to and enabled the abuse, the extended relative had advised on methods of control, and the family friend had provided indirect support, ensuring the environment remained dangerous. Lisa Harris's manipulation, however, stood out for its intensity and planning. Investigators revealed that she had kept detailed logs of Emily's meals, exercise, and behavior, using both psychological intimidation and physical restriction to maintain dominance. The town struggled to reconcile the outward appearances of the Harris family with the horrifying reality that had been uncovered. Neighbors who had once praised Lisa and Emily's father as model parents were left in disbelief. Teachers and friends wrestled with guilt, wondering how they had failed to notice the signs sooner. Public discussions turned to the subtle indicators of abuse, emphasizing that signs are often hidden and that vigilance in observing and reporting irregularities can be the difference between intervention and tragedy. Experts spoke on local news programs about the long-term effects of starvation and emotional manipulation, stressing the importance of psychological support for survivors. Emily's recovery was not just physical but also deeply emotional. She began therapy sessions that focused on trust, self-worth, and coping with the trauma of manipulation and fear. Rebuilding her sense of autonomy was a slow process. Activities that were once terrifying, a trip to a grocery store, choosing her own meals, speaking freely, were now small steps toward reclaiming a life that had been systematically denied to her. Each successful day was a victory, yet the memories of her captivity remained vivid, reminding her of the depth of cruelty she had endured. The legal process, meanwhile, became a public reckoning. The arrests and charges against all four adults sent a message that accountability was unavoidable, even when abuse had been hidden behind appearances. Prosecutors emphasized that this case was not isolated. It served as a warning that cruelty can exist in ordinary homes, masked by everyday routines and societal trust. Emily's story became a symbol of survival and resilience, a reminder of the importance of recognizing the unseen struggles faced by vulnerable children. Her journey toward healing highlighted the dual need for justice and protection, showing the world that recovery, though challenging, is possible and that vigilance and awareness are essential in preventing similar tragedies.